Merrick Alpert is a former Democratic campaign worker, has served in the armed forces in a peacekeeping mission in Bosnia, and is an accomplished businessman and now Democratic candidate for U.S. Senator from Connecticut challenging Chris Dodd. He's also author of the new book Morning Sun and will be at a book signing at the UConn Co-op Wednesday, October 14th at 4 p.m. Welcome, Merrick.
Welcome. Thank you.
Glad to have you. So, what is your book about? What's the theme?
You know, my book is really about my journey through life, and UConn is really front and center to it. I kind of started at the beginning. I grew up in Colchester, and was raised by a single mom. My father left when I was a little kid, and I never saw him again. And we struggled. We struggled the way a lot of single parent homes struggle. My mom was a school teacher in Colchester, but she struggled to have enough money to raise my brother and sister and myself, and so she cut bread at the Colchester bakery as a second job. And I worked construction and kind of did everything folks do in eastern Connecticut to get by. And I was very, very, very fortunate that I was able to get into one college, and it was the University of Connecticut, and that's where everything happened for me.
You mentioned you were raised by a single mother in Colchester, and she worked 2 jobs while raising 3 kids.
Yeah.
How's that affected your outlook? You
know, I think that starting poor, starting from humble origin, really connects you with people's struggle. One of the things that I've found in my way through life as I've kind of climbed is that you often find people who come from power or money or both, and they are very, very often wildly disconnected from most people's lives and most people's struggles. And that's particularly true the longer people are just bathed in power and money. And for me, I never forgot where I come from, what I am, who I come from, and that's a big connection point. And what's interesting is, as a kid, for me, I felt completely alone in the sense that I didn't know other folks who didn't have a father around in some way. And lo and behold, all these years later, now you realize statistically, it's more than 50% of households at any point in time are going to be single-parent households in Connecticut. So this is something that it strikes a responsive chord. People can relate to it.
So when you say that the longer a politician stays in office or stays in that realm of power, they get less connected and more out of touch with common people. Would you say that applies to Senator Dodd?
I think it does, and I mean, look, my opinion is one opinion. I think if you just travel the state the way I do each day, and you talk with hundreds and hundreds of folks each day at Democratic town committees and at county fairs and at shopping malls and just on the main streets, people are pretty clear that there's a disconnect, and Senator Dodd is one of the people who's very disconnected. But obviously there are others who are disconnected, and part of that is generational. The folks who are at UConn today, they're not connected to these folks in Washington. They're not. It's not the same worries, not the same concerns, not the same lives. Hard to relate to somebody who's just had wealth and power. It's hard to relate to somebody who's been bathed in it for, as I always say, for longer than Moses and the Israelites wandered in the desert.
I think a really good measure of what you're describing is the fact that the presidency or the campaign of Barack Obama as a very young candidate really mobilized a lot of young people in support of him.
That's right. And look, change is not about talk, change is about action. And so one of the things I always say to people is, look, if you liked Obama, you're going to love me, because this is about real change. And the president is one person. And as skilled as he is, you can't send him there with a bunch of dinosaurs and think he's going to be able to produce great results. He needs people like him, and that is to a great extent what I offer.
I think there are a lot of people who are frustrated because they do have the most progressive president in recent memory, and yet Congress seems to be dragging its knuckles, dragging its heels, unwilling to go along with a progressive or a liberal agenda.
I think that's true on multiple fronts. I think that's true on health care. I think that's true with regard to educational policy. I think it's certainly true with regard to Iraq and Afghanistan. If you don't change anything, nothing changes. And at the end of the day, you can't expect that the people who've been there for 40 years, who've gotten us into this quagmire economically, militarily, you can't expect the people who've caused all these problems to now get us out of these problems. I always say to people, in your own life, have you ever met anybody who caused a horrible wreck, who caused a terrible situation in people's lives, who then could clean it up? I mean, by definition, the people who need to come and clean up are different than the people who made the mess. And what I'm offering is to lead the people in the state in cleaning up the mess these other folks have made.
You've made the argument on your website that Chris Dodd is unelectable. Why do you think that?
Well, I think for a couple of reasons. Again, my opinion aside, the empirical data tells you he's unelectable. Month after month after month, Quinnipiac, which obviously is one of the major polling groups in the state, they will show you three things in the empirical data about Senator Dodd. The first thing is that the vast majority of voters in Connecticut believe that he is not competent as far as the chairman of the Senate Banking Committee. He obviously was the chairman when the banking system was allowed to be deregulated and then collapsed.
Right.
So people have a very strong feeling he's not competent. The second thing the empirical data tells you from the polling is that it is believed, as we said before, that he is out of touch with the average citizen's struggle and plight in Connecticut. And so month after month after month, you see the same empirical data telling you he's out of touch. And then the third piece of empirical data that comes out of the polling is that people believe he's not honest and trustworthy. And the question is literally phrased that way. Do you believe Senator Dodd is honest and trustworthy? Month after month after month after month, in Connecticut, vast majority of voters say he is not honest and trustworthy. So you have someone who's believed to not be competent, to be out of touch with the ordinary citizen's life, and to not be honest and trustworthy. Any of those things taken alone, if you spent the way he does, millions of dollars of special interest money buying TV commercials, you could probably overcome it. Mm-hmm. But the lethal cocktail is being viewed as both disconnected from people's lives and dishonest about what you're doing. And when you then wrap that up with not competent, you can't get out of that. You can't buy honest. And that's the fundamental problem for him, is there's no way out of that problem.